All right, guys, so we're going to be working on this lesson on completing the square. If you do not have this worksheet in front of you, you can find it in Google Classroom. If there is a way for you to print it out, please do so. Otherwise, you're going to want to copy down what is on that worksheet on your own paper, and then you can restart this video. Please remember that you can pause this video at any time if you are having trouble keeping up. I will try to talk as slowly as I can. And then if you have any questions, you can meet me tomorrow from 2 to 3. I will be sending out the Google Meet address that you will find in your email, and you can join me there for any questions. So we are going to be using something called completing the square to find the constant of a polynomial. So you can see right here, this is what our general polynomials will look like. There will be a number here in front of the x squared, a number here in front of the x, and we are going to be trying to find this guy right here, c. Here's the formula that you're going to want to use every time you are looking for that c. So you take b, which is this number that's sitting in front of the x, you divide that number by 2, then you take that result and square it or multiply it to itself. So let's practice a couple of problems that you see here down at the bottom of that worksheet. It says to find c and then factor the polynomial. So this is our b right here, because remember, we're trying to find what we should be adding to that. That's our c. So we're going to take the 10, and we're going to divide it by 2. And then once we get that answer, we're going to square it. So 10 divided by 2 is 5. And then 5 squared, remember, is just saying 5 times 5. So our answer is 25. So over here, I'm going to take what they gave me, which was x squared plus 10x, and I'm going to add our answer that we got here for c, and I'm going to put 25 right there. Now you're going to want to factor it. These are going to be those perfect square trinomials that we've talked about in the past. You can use the x method to factor it, or if you're pretty good at just kind of looking at these, you will see that this will be factored into x plus 5 and x plus 5, because 5 times 5 is 25 and 5 plus 5 is 10. Anytime we had something that had the same thing in both polynomials, we could write our final answer as x plus 5 squared, and that's our final factored answer. So we found c, we plugged c into the polynomial that they gave us right here, and then we factored that polynomial, and since it's the same thing in both parentheses, we rewrote it as the 1 parenthesis squared. Let me erase this. Let's look at this next example. So we've got 1m squared minus 6m plus, and we're trying to figure out what that c is. So again, up here, using that formula, we take our b. We don't have to worry about the sign. You can take it with that when you plug it into the formula if you want to, but you don't have to. So we're going to take that number 6, we're going to divide it by 2, and we're going to square that answer. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. So that's going to go in the place right here. So I'm going to rewrite this statement over here and put that 9 in that blank space. So I've got m squared minus 6m plus 9. Now I've got to factor it. So I'm going to have m minus 3 and m minus 3, because negative 3 times negative 3 is 9, and negative 3 plus negative 3 is negative 6. Again, we have the same thing in both parentheses, so our final answer would be m minus 3 squared. So that's the front side of that lesson page. I'm going to flip this over. and we're going to look at what it says on the back. So it says the following polynomials are prime. That means that they cannot be factored. So remember, prime just means that the polynomial cannot be factored in the way that it's written right now. So we're going to move the given c that they gave us to the other side of the equation. So we first need to take this 3 and we need to move it to this side of the equation. So remember, to do that, we have to use the opposite sign. So since this says plus 3, we're going to have to subtract 3 to the other side. So that would give us x squared plus 6x equals negative 3. So now we need to do is find the new c, just like we did on the other side, and then factor it, just like we did on the other side. So we're going to take this, and I'm going to put a plus and a blank space, just like we did on the other side. So we have x squared plus 6x plus, and we need to find that c. We still have the negative 3 on the other side. Remember, whatever you do to one side of an equation, you have to do to the other. So if we're going to be adding a number to this side, we're going to have to add a number to that side. So let's use that formula from the other side. This is our b. So we take that 6, we divide it by 2, we square that. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. So I'm going to be adding that 9 to both sides of the equation. So that would give us x squared plus 6x plus 9 equals negative 3 plus 9. So now this side is factorable. So let's see, that would give us x plus 3, because 3 times 3 is 9, and 3 plus 3 is 6. On the other side, we're going to have negative 3 plus 9, which is 6. So our final answer on this part would be x plus 3 squared, because there's 2 of those, equals 6. That's all I'm going to ask you to do on that part. So now let's go over to number 4. Let's do the same exact thing. Right now, with this c, this is not factorable. So we want to make sure that we can make this side of the equation factorable. So I need to move that 14. To move it, I use the opposite sign. So since this says plus 14, I'm going to have to subtract 14, and I do that to both sides. So that would give me x squared minus 10x plus, I'm going to be inserting something there, equals 0 minus 14 is negative 14. What you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to the other. So I'm going to be adding the same thing to both sides here in just a minute. So now I've got to find what that new c is, just like I was just doing on the other side using that same formula. So here's my b. So I'm going to take that 10, I'm going to divide it by 2, and then I'm going to square it. 10 divided by 2 is 5. 5 squared is 25. So I'm going to put that 25 in the place of those 2 blank spaces. Okay? So over here, I would have x squared minus 10x plus 25 equals negative 14 plus 25. So now I can factor this. So I have x minus 5 and x minus 5, because negative 5 times negative 5 is 25, and negative 5 plus negative 5 is negative 10, and that's going to be equal to negative 14 plus 25, which is 11. Remember, since these are both the same thing, we're going to write that one time, square it, and that will be equal to 11. And that's as far as we're going to take that one.